All right, thank you everyone for joining us. Today's presentation, Vermont Applies, presents interviewing success strategies. This presentation is being offered as part of VSAC's Vermont Applies initiative. And before we get started, I do have a couple of housekeeping pieces that I want to review for everybody. I did also send a message through the chat, but as a reminder, all participants are muted during the presentation. I will be monitoring the chat, and we welcome any questions through the chat that at any point in time that you may have them. I will be monitoring that and surfacing them to Renee as we go throughout the presentation. But we will also have, time permitting, of course, an opportunity at the end for an open forum time for some questions. And finally, today's presentation is being recorded and will be available for later viewing if you have any interest in referring back to that. Now, without any further ado, I want to introduce you all to Renee Beaupre-White. Renee is passionate about helping individuals explore their interests and develop their skills. With more than 30 years of experience in career counseling in higher education, Renee is highly skilled at assisting students and adults in career exploration, development, transition, and the job search process. As the current director of career services at Castleton, her alma mater, Renee also is a part-time career coach at Proctor Junior Senior High School. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Renee.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon to talk about interviewing, to share interviewing tips. I love talking about this. This is one of my favorite topics to cover. I'm thrilled that you're joining us. So we're going to start. I'm going to start with a quote, and the quote is, "It's not always the most qualified person who will get hired, but it's the one most skilled in interviewing." So I like to share this quote at the beginning of when I'm talking about interviewing, just to really, stress that it's a skill. Interviewing, the more we do it, the more we know how to do it, the better we become at it. So it's really important that we have skill, that we have some skill. And again, you'll continue to improve the more you do this. So, okay. So as an interviewee, your agenda as part of an interview process is to convey your interest and share your pertinent qualifications and skills to the specific position you're interviewing for, to determine if the opportunity is a good fit for you. So remember too, I really want to stress this, interviewing is a two-way street. Yes, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them, and you're getting information as much as they're getting information. So just again, you want to determine if it's a good fit. So on that note too, be really mindful and pay attention to things that happen during an interview. So if you're picking up any feelings, good or bad, don't avoid those. Because again, you want to make sure it's a good fit as much as they want to make sure it's a good fit. Your agenda is also to stand out. You need to stand out in whatever ways you can when you're interviewing for a job. Keep in mind, when we're interviewed today, when we're being called to interview, it's very seldom is it just you they're going to be interviewing for that one position. They'll be talking to 3 to 5 people for that one job. So again, your job is to stand out to them in really good ways, in positive ways. And ideally to obtain an offer. You want to get an offer from this interview. So their agenda, we'll just go to the next. Their agenda, the interviews, is to assess, are you qualified? Can you be trained? Are you motivated? How do you communicate? And are you a good fit? So keep in mind, again, when you're being interviewed, those are the things that they're wondering about you. So again, it's important that that you stress, that your qualifications, that yes, you can be trained, you're motivated, you have initiative, good work ethic, how you communicate, and if you're a good fit. And we're going to talk deeper about these things. Okay, so what do you bring to an interview? You do bring a few things, copies of your resume. So if it's in person, that is. So we're talking today mostly if this is an in-person interview. You'll bring copies of your resume. Yes, they will have it and they will have reviewed it and they will have probably written and made some comments and questions, but you want to bring extra copies of your resume in a portfolio, a nice folder. Bring a pen, piece of paper. It's perfectly fine, acceptable for you to jot certain things down during interview. That, information that they share with you. You don't write every single thing down, but it's certainly fine for you to make note of specific things that you want to remember and write down. You're going to have written out questions for them. And again, we're going to talk more about that, but you're going to have pre-written these questions out. They're going to be, in your folder. You're not going to leave them in your head, because you want to make sure you have those written out in advance to ask. You're going to bring a copy of your list of your references, the folks that, who have agreed to serve as references for you, and directions to the interview site. If it's a place that you have not been, make sure that you know where you're going and bring directions. And again, we're going to talk about timeliness and, but again, know where you're going and leave extra time when you're interviewing. Okay, so that's what you're going to bring. What you won't bring to an interview, you may bring your phone, but there's a huge rule with the phone. It must be off and it cannot be visible. So if you, put it in your suit pocket and your purse, brief, whatever, or just leave it in your car or leave it at home, but it should never be visible during an interview, not even on the table. Again, it's a distraction, and even if it's off. Okay, so make sure your phones aren't seen. No earbuds, no heavy cologne or perfume. Again, you want the interview to be focused on you and not how you smell and what, again, if you're not going to bring salary demands. You might have an idea, and you should have an idea of salary for that job if it hasn't been stated, but you're not going to talk about that, and that's not going to be part of that agenda for that first interview. And certainly you never want to bring a negative attitude to an interview. Again, you want to be as positive as possible, and you want them to see, a positive attitude. Okay, next. So just a reminder about the skills that employers are looking for, that hopefully that you can share when you're answering questions, but your ability to problem solve, communication, both speaking, writing, team. And again, they're going to be seeing your communication skills right away. Again, not your nonverbal, how your interpersonal skills, your body language, how you're speaking. They've already seen your writing because they already have your resume and your cover letter probably, and whatever else if they've asked for anything else in addition. So that's communication. Teamwork skills, analytical, quantitative skills, digital technology, adaptability, work ethic, professionalism, and leadership. So these are just skills I want you to be mindful of. These are skills that employers want in us. And again, make sure you showcase any of these skills that you have to them during that interview. Okay, and then the next. So preparing for the interview. So I really believe that the preparation is is as important as the actual interview itself. You cannot, that's underlined in bold, wing an interview and expect to get hired. You just can't. So please don't. If you're called to an interview for a job that you've applied for, you need to prepare. So what are you going to do? So we're going to go through these steps. So you're going to assess yourself. You're going to research the employer, the organization, the people. The minute you're contacted to interview for a job and you accept, you need to ask them, if they haven't told you who you're going to be meeting with, you need to ask them who you're going to be meeting with and how long you should plan on spending with them. Again, you need to know who you're going to be speaking with. Why? Why do you need to know that? Because you want to find out, you want to know who they are in the organization, and you want to, again, you're going to research them, their roles. So you're going to have some familiarity, some knowledge of the individuals that are interviewing you during the process. And again, it's going to give you more confidence and it's going to give you more familiarity with them. and it's just going to help. It will definitely help. They won't be so, John Doe, whoever, I'm going to be interviewing you. You need to know, okay, John Doe is the director or the assistant director, or he's the human resources, whoever he is. You need to know. And again, it might be one person, it might be multiple. So make sure you know if you're going to be speaking with more than one person. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. Again, you want to know your audience and know who they are and how long you're going to be there. Some interviews are half an hour. And again, they can range. They can be an hour, they can be a half a day, they can be all day, depending on the position. You need to know how long you're going to be spending with them in the format and the people that you're going to be speaking with. So you have to do your homework, right? So again, knowing their mission, finding out as much information about obviously studying, they're looking at their website, looking at their philosophy. What are they doing? Google the name of the companies, organizations. What's popping up first about them? These are things that you need to make sure you know going into an interview. And you want to match your qualifications, experience, education, the very best you can to the position. And you're going to prepare what you're going to wear. Again, don't wait till the day of to do this. Make sure, you give ample time, figure out what you're going to wear. Dress is very important when you're interviewing for a job. So again, you want to look professional. So, and again, look at their culture. What do they wear? And again, the rule of thumb is like one up from what their average dress is. Dress can be can really range today in companies and cultures. But the rule of thumb is always overdress than underdress when you're interviewing for a job. Again, your first impression you make when the start of that interview is key. And you want to make a really good first impression. And of course, dressing professionally, having combed hair, being clean, that makes a huge difference. So you want to definitely make sure. So again, and leave good time to make sure you have that. Know where they're located, know where you're going, and you're going to prepare questions in advance. So this is what you're going to do prior to the interview, and you're going to practice. And we're going to talk about the questions that you're going to practice rehearsing. So practice, practice, practice. Okay. And then the next. So you're going to review common questions and formulate answers, and you're going to have examples ready to share. And you're going to develop a list of questions to ask them when it's your turn. You'll always be asked towards the end of an interview, do you have any questions for us? And the answer is always 100% of the time, yes. You never go into an interview and say, no, I don't have any questions for you. That's an automatic, this person probably really isn't interested. And why wouldn't they have any questions if they're interested in working for us? So you always want to go into an interview with questions. If by chance, when they ask you that, do you have any questions for us? And it maybe the questions have already been answered during the interview. Instead of you saying no, you would say, well, I did. However, you've already answered them. So again, you never say no. And you're going to practice with somebody, a career coach, career counselor, a friend, a trusted friend, a family member, somebody that you know and will give you some good feedback. And just remembering preparation is the key to a successful interview. And I have to just tell you, they're gonna, the folks interviewing you are gonna know really early on into the interview if you've prepared. So just prepare. Okay, next. So in assessing yourself, again, knowing your skills, your abilities, your interests, giving specific examples directly related to the position you're applying for, always highlighting your strengths, your natural gifts, your natural talents. Make sure you stress those as much as possible. And your weaknesses, because that is a common question. Tell us your strengths and your weaknesses, challenges. However you respond to the weakness question, just make sure it's something that is not going to be an automatic red flag for that position. And also showcase how you've improved that weakness. So, maybe it's something, maybe you would answer a weakness as, time management. Time management I've, struggled with, or it's been an issue. However, since, last year, I've, greatly improved this by X and Y. So as long as you can showcase how you've improved, that's really important. So assessing yourself. Okay, and then next. So again, be professional. You're going to dress professionally. If it's in person, of course, I almost took this out for a firm handshake. I hope we're going to go back to shaking hands, but right now we're not shaking hands if it is in person. It's probably going to be on Zoom. Smile. You want to make sure you have good eye contact, good posture. Listen carefully and be responsive. Again, always accentuate the positive. Never talk negatively about a former employer or person, boss, supervisor. That should never enter an interview space. Be original and demonstrate creativity when you can, when it's appropriate. Make connections between your skills and what they need. The more you do that, I'm telling you, the more that you do that, the better. Be confident. I want to talk a little bit about confidence. I've counseled so many people on interviewing. And I've counseled so many who have really come into my office and just said, and I look at their resume and they have a great resume, but yet they just don't have that confidence. So when I say be confident, I mean it. And this is the only thing I will ever tell anybody, any of my clients, to fake it until you make it. You must go into an interview confident in your ability to do that job. If they've contacted you to interview you for a position that you've applied for, they already like you. You've already impressed them. You have to be confident when you're speaking with them in your ability to do that job and to do it well. It's so important that you be as confident. And again, fake it if you have to, but just be confident in your ability to do it. So important. And most importantly, we'll just go to the next. You want to tell them you want to work for them. This is about them, what you have to offer them. So they're not looking for people with, experience, a ton of experience, a lot of experience. They understand that you don't. They know what you've done. They see your resume if you don't have a lot of experience. Again, they already like you if they've contacted to interview you. So, and they'll train you if they like you and you have the qualifications, the skills. They'll train you. And again, it can show the employer that you're eager and excited to work for them. The more they're likely to hire you. So show them you want to tell them, state in as many ways that you can that you want to work for them. It's about them, that company, that organization. Okay. So common questions. So this is just a short list of common questions that you're going to be asked during an interview that, again, you want to prepare for. You want to practice these questions. Tell me about yourself. That's usually an opener. That's usually an opening question they're going to ask you. Why are you interested in, the name of the position? What do you know about our company? Again, you're going to relay what you know, right? Because you've done your homework. What interests you about this industry? Why are you qualified for this position? How have you dealt with prior challenges? How do you define success? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Again, this is a short list of questions, but I'm sure you'll be asked many of these in your future interviews, or similar questions to these. So again, articulating how you will respond to these questions. When you're answering questions, remember, try not to go on and on. You want to be, less is more, but you want to make sure you answer the question, but you don't want to ramble. So make sure that your answers are concise. We'll go to the next. So the tell me about yourself question. How do you do that? How do we do that? So you're going to remember this formula. So you're going to talk about your current role or a recent accomplishment, what you're currently doing, or what something that, that you've been, a recent success that you've had, past, how you got there, and any of your previous experiences that is relevant to the job and the company you're applying for. And then you're going to segue into what you're looking to do and why you're interested in the position and the company, and why you're a great fit too. Why you're a great fit too. I'm just going to stop here too, because I just want you to remember, I mean, there's another, so again, when we're interviewing for jobs, the three things are can, will, and fit. They're wondering, can you do this job? Will you do this job? And are you going to fit with who we are, with our team? And almost always the person that will get hired is the person that is going to be the best fit, because the can and wills, maybe all three candidates pass that. Yep, all three could and would do this. But who's going to fit the best right now with what we need in this position for this company? So again, the more homework you do, the more you know how you are going to fit, the better. I hope that makes sense.
We had a question pop up that I just want to surface here. If it's something that you'll cover, please just let us know. Otherwise, what if you're in an interview and the prospective employer or hiring manager, whoever you're interviewing with, is maybe concerned in the chat they use judging or ridiculing because of long-term unemployment or inexperience for a job? Can you talk to maybe how one would maybe handle that situation, how one might want to shine light on maybe some long-term unemployment or something along those lines?
So I think just stating why, again, you don't have to get real personal, but just explaining why. But did the person say ridiculing or judging, or?
If the prospective employer maybe was coming off that way.
I think it's just important to be honest and state why, but you don't have to get real personal either. You could just, you don't have to, again, you never want to share like personal information during an interview. So like, let's just, so if it was, but you could just say, due to a family, incident or whatever, but don't give specifics. I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering that question though, to the satisfaction that you need.
That's okay. Maybe what we'll do is we'll move forward for now. I'm going to circle back to that one if we need to.
I want to make sure that I'm addressing that enough.
Certainly.
Okay. So there are different kinds of questions. I just want you to all be mindful of these. So there's the personal questions. Tell me about yourself. The first question they usually ask you. The competency-based questions, which are what are your strengths or weaknesses? Performance-based questions would be something like, what is your greatest accomplishment? Company-based questions, why do you want to work for us? And then position-specific questions would be something like, what is your management style? So those are different kinds of questions that you'll probably be, asked different varieties in these from these different ones. Okay. When answering questions, it's always good to use the STAR technique. So ask the situation, providing information, background information relevant to the competency or skill, describing the situation, your task, your specific role, what you did, and the action steps that you took, and then the result of your contributions. So try, again, when you're giving examples, when you're answering questions, try to give them a situation, an example that's going to showcase your excellent organizational or teamwork skills or ability to problem solve or whatever they're asking you. It's always good to give an example to showcase. And that this is just a good technique to remember. So components to successfully answering interview questions. Again, practice, and prepare. Take your time when answering. So when you're asked a question, you don't have to right off the bat answer, like say something. It's fine. And it's actually good to take a few seconds, gather your thoughts, and then articulate your answer. Let's just say they ask you a question and you're not sure. You're just not sure how to answer it. Instead of you just saying something to get it over with, to get to that next question, just say something like, that's a really good question. I'd like to give that more thought and get back to you. And again, instead of just saying something off the cuff, like just without really thinking about it, or just, again, you want to be thoughtful in your responses. But again, take your time. It's perfectly fine to take a few seconds to gather your thoughts before you answer. Make sure you use strong action words, pertinent action words when you're describing when you're giving your responses. Whatever it is you did or have done. And make sure you share any of your accomplishments, anything that you've been recognized for, you know, whether in school, in work situations, and volunteer experiences, share those. And again, shorter is better, being concise and giving specific answers. So again, try not to ramble during an interview, and try not to talk too fast, and certainly don't talk too slow. So you want to have that medium, that regular, but again, try to be concise and always demonstrating your ability to perform the job. Okay. And then, so what do you ask in an interview? Like I said, we're going to go back. So you always go into an interview having in hand in your file, in your portfolio, written out questions that you're going to ask them. This is just a sample list of questions. And you know, you might have 3, you might have 5, you might have many more. That's fine. Just make sure again, you don't ever ask them a question. Like for instance, you wouldn't want to say, well, how many employees do you have here? Or what do you do? You know, what does this company do? No, you know what they do, right? Because you've done your homework. So certainly don't ever ask them a question where the information is readily available. And but these are common questions that you could ask. Can you describe a typical day in this role, in this position? What do you see as the greatest challenge in this position? How would you describe the management style? How is performance evaluated? What are expectations of a new hire? How would you describe a successful employee in this position? What do you like most about the company, least about the company? And what are the next steps? So that last question, sometimes they'll tell you the next steps when they're wrapping up the interview. But if they don't, it's certainly fine for you to ask that. What are the next steps? When can I anticipate hearing from you? So again, these are just common questions. And again, you know, and feel free to obviously, you know, to inject any of your own specific questions. But again, like I said at the beginning, interviewing is two-way. It's a two-way street here. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, getting as much information. They've asked their questions. Your time comes too, and you want to make sure that you have all the answers to the questions that you have. And again, the more information that you're going to have from these, the better understanding you're going to have of the overall position and how you might fit. So again, some of the, you know, pay attention. If they say something that you weren't aware of, if they say like, what's a typical day like, if they say, well, you know, some days, you know, it's mandatory overtime. You've got to work 12-hour day and just 12-hour shifts, you know, and you weren't aware of that. Like, you know, that's something that, you know, might not sit well with you right now, or that might not be good. So pay attention to whatever it is they say. Okay. And then, so just general tips, be on time. So what's on time? What's on time for an interview? So if it's in person, 10 minutes. You should be in the space, in the lobby, wait 10 minutes. Always be early. Never, ever be late for an interview, ever. And if you are, let's just say something happens, whatever, just let them know right away. Stuck in traffic, whatever, you know, but just don't come late and not say anything. So, but again, you always want to be early, going back to know where you're going, especially if it's a place you haven't been before. Be on time. Dress well, dress professionally. Again, just look nice. Professional clothes. Again, and on the dress side too, you know, when you're interviewing, all you want them to focus on is you and your answers. So make sure whatever you wear, whatever you choose to wear, just make sure it's nothing that's going to be distracting. So years ago, I was on a committee for a position, and the candidate, it was a female, and she came in head to toe. She had a suit, and it was fluorescent orange. I'm not kidding. And do you know, and I swear to, like, I swear to you, that's the only thing I remember about this candidate. like I couldn't get past it because it was so distracting. It's kind of like on the cologne and perfume, you know, too. Like, don't ever like wear or have anything on that's going to be, you know, a barrier, and it will be. So again, always, you know, more conservative is always the best. You want them just to focus on you and your answers and how you're going to fit in that with that organization. You're going to emphasize your strengths as much as you can, speaking clearly and confidently. You're going to give specific examples. And again, you're going to have thought about this prior to the interview, specific examples you're going to share with them. You're going to know and articulate facts about them. Every single time you say something specific about them, their company, what they're doing, you're going to get a plus. And your job is to get as many pluses as possible. Again, it's going to be like, oh, did their homework. Oh, did their homework. Know that last year we were recognized as one of the top employers in New England for whatever. I mean, so know your facts. Again, avoid personal issues. You don't want to bring up anything about you personally, ever. It's just not appropriate. Be confident in your abilities. Convey genuine interest. So important. You know, be yourself and showcase, you know, be as enthusiastic as you can, even if you're a real introvert and really shy, but I want you to try and be as genuinely interested and enthusiastic as you can. You're going to ask appropriate questions. And again, they're waiting for those questions. So, you know, don't think you're going to throw them off by asking them. You're always going to thank them. Always thank them. And again, relax and be yourself. And that's so important too. So again, whoever it is, introvert, extrovert, I don't know, whoever you are, bring that to the interview, because again, they want to know who you, they want to have a good sense of your personality, you know. So show it to them. If they end up hiring you, and if you're nothing like you were in the interview, they're going to be like, wow. So on that note, you know, it's okay to laugh. It's okay to, you know, show, you know, I mean, you're not going to tell jokes or anything like that, but it's okay. Like show your personality in whatever way you can. Okay. And so how do people fail in interviews? They don't look they didn't dress the part, poor hygiene, poor appearance. They arrived too late, or arrived late, or arrived too early. Again, you don't want to be there half an hour early. You know, again, 10 minutes is a good rule of thumb. Didn't have interest or enough enthusiasm. Didn't really respond to the questions. Wasn't clear. They weren't clear enough. Didn't look, the eye contact was not good. That's never good. On that note too, if let's just say there's more than one person interviewing you for a job, as far as eye contact, so you're going to look at the person that asks you the question the most, but don't ever avoid anybody in the room or in the Zoom, wherever you're interviewing. You always want to maintain eye contact with your audience, but giving the person that asks you the question the most eye contact. Lack of confidence. Like I said, fake it until you make it. I want you to really go into every interview with being as confident as possible in your ability to do that job. Not asking any questions, not following up, or following up too much. We're going to talk about that. So after the interview, again, if they haven't told you, when they're wrapping it up, if they haven't told you the next steps, you're going to ask them the next steps. When can I expect to hear from you? What are the next steps? You're going to assess your performance. And, you know, honestly, you know, ask yourself when you leave the interview, and you ask yourself, how did you do? You know, and write down anything that you want to make sure you remember that was talked about during that interview, or ways that you could, you know, that maybe you feel you could improve in the future. You always send a thank you note within 24 hours, even if it's a company or organization you would never work for. I'm going to repeat that. You always thank them. for their time. And again, it can be a handwritten note, it can be an email. You just need to do it. And why do you need to do it? You need to do it because it's a courtesy. They want to see that you're thanking them. And like I said, even if it's a place, an organization that you would never work at, maybe again, if you wouldn't accept the position if they offered it to you, you never know who you might down the road you might come in contact with from that interview again. So you always want to, again, it's a courtesy and it's being professional, and it's really important that you do that. And again, it doesn't have to be terribly long. A couple sentences, how long it might be longer than that. If it's a position that you're just like, oh my gosh, after you leave that interview, you're just on cloud 9 and you want it so bad, make it longer and add in that thank you note ways in which what you can bring to that position. Maybe things that maybe you had forgotten to say, or maybe things you just want to reiterate to them. But you always want to send a thank you note so if it's to the very least, the chair of the committee, if it was or all the people, again, you can never, ever, ever go wrong sending a thank you note. So, and again, that should ideally be out within 24 hours. Contact your references and let them know that you've interviewed. If they haven't already been contacted, just keep them in the loop that they might be contacted, that you've interviewed, and give them an update on that. And lastly, and this is hard, but get comfortable with the waiting. So the wait can be much longer than sometimes we want. So try to, you just have to be patient. And, that time, I know it's really hard. It's a hard space to be in. Everybody's been in that space. Even the position I'm in now at Castleton, which I've been at Castleton for 8 years now. But when I applied for the job, it took them over a month, and I didn't think I got the job. And anyway, I ended up getting it, but it was just Castleton for some reason. To this day, they take a long time from start to finish. So just be mindful of that, it might be longer than you anticipate, but following up and asking them, is always okay, and again, usually they're going to give you a time frame when you can expect to hear from them. But, you just never know with committees and with searches, and they can vary. So, yeah. So next is.
We actually did have a question pop up, if I may.
Sure.
Thinking from a broad perspective, out of everything that you've shared with us today, the do's and the don'ts and the hows, should this be taken differently, whether or not somebody is interviewing at maybe the office, the formal office space of an official organization, versus maybe somebody's home office, if this was an organization that started from or ran out of their home, but maybe doesn't occur in the home? Should things be done differently, kind of depending on who you're interviewing with? Does that make sense? Whether or not like you're going to a traditional office building versus maybe this is a business that's run out of someone's home. Should all be the same?
Yes.
Okay.
In my opinion, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And the last thing, I think, while we're on the question slide, I was wondering if you would be able to touch on briefly is how and maybe what of this would change given the virtual world right now? What could people do differently if they're doing an interview via Zoom during everything that's happening right now with the pandemic?
Right. So so it's even more important that you relay, again, they're seeing you, right? Just like you're seeing me now, but it's different in person, right? We get more when we're physically with people. So you really have to do your best to just pretend you're actually in person. And obviously make sure that everything's working, that, you're not distracted, that your dog's not barking. There's so many things, on Zoom that you want to make sure everything's covered. That you're going to have, make sure there's no distractions during an interview. yeah, I think, it's kind of like with the phone interviews. I just think I personally think it's just more difficult to interview on Zoom and on the phone, even if it's on a phone interview, because so much of what is what we get is in person. And so it's tricky. It's tricky.
Thank you for that. Before we do open it up for any other questions from our participants, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom?
Yeah, I don't know if I said this, but you're judged, and I know that's I don't like the word judge, but you are. You're judged the first 20 seconds, they say. It's kind of like your resume. The first 20 to 30 seconds, they judge you on your resume. Well, the interview is the same. They're judging you. Those first, that first impression is so important. And it's a make or break, period. Like, you have to make a really good first impression. So I want you, just remember, start strong and finish strong. You want to leave with a really good impression too, but you have to have a good start, in my opinion. I mean, you have to, because if you have a bad start to an interview, again, you're late, maybe you're not looking, bad eye contact, whatever, poor eye contact. I mean, it's really hard to recover from that when you're interviewing for a job. So again, you need to really make a really good impression right away. And like I said, again, you can't wing it. You can't wing it and expect to get hired. You just can't. So, if you're asked to interview for a job, do your take your time, prepare. And again, the more you prepare, the better the results you're going to have. Period. I mean, that's it. I mean, I hope that came through today, and I hope that you all realize that. And again, the more you do it, just like we said, like, it's a skill. It's not always the most qualified person that's going to get that job. It's the one most skilled in interviewing. You need to know how to do it. You need to practice. You need to practice those questions, all those things you need to do. So.
Thank you. All right. So on that note, I did just set it so that if anybody has any questions, you are welcome to unmute yourselves. I did see that one just came in through the chat. It's a little bit longer of a question. So if the person who sends that feels comfortable, I'd welcome you to unmute yourself and ask Renee. If not, I'm happy to read it off here. Okay. So it looks like the chat that came through is, what if a hiring manager is unable or won't give feedback or says something like, you are a very compelling candidate and will keep you in mind for future openings. But if the applicant applies and doesn't get considered again, what does that mean? Does that mean that perhaps they were lied to, or was there something else that might be happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would ask them, is there anything I can do to improve in a future interview? Or are there any other skills? Is there anything I could improve? How might do you have any recommendations how I could improve? And on that note too, if you don't get it the first time, keep at it. Don't take any, rejection. I mean, I know it's very hard. If we don't get a job, it's very hard not to take it, because you want it, right? But if you don't get it the first time, if it's an organization in that position you really want to work, apply again. Apply again. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who haven't gotten the first time, but they've kept their eye on the prize, and they've eventually gotten into the organization. So if it's a place that you really want to work, if they don't hire you the first time around, apply again.
And I guess,
unless, again, as long as you have the qualifications. But again, if they're interviewing you for a job, you have the majority of you have what they're looking for. You have some of the things that they're looking for. So, yeah.
Speaking from personal experience, and you never know. And Renee, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they can always call you back down the road for that position if something changes.
I've done that on committees. Yes, that happens. And that's why I said, going back to the thank you note, being courteous, being professional, like, you never know where you might end up. It might be with that organization, right? In a year or 2 or 6 months or 5 years, or you might come in contact with that person or person, you know, that was part of that interview.
Perfect. No other questions have come through the chat. I'll give everybody a last chance. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll look at maybe wrapping up the presentation today.
Excellent.
Give it just a few moments here. All right. Well, Renee, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us and sharing your wisdom with all of us. And participants that are joining us today live, thank you for registering and joining, and for anyone watching the presentation. Again, thank you for watching this, and let us know if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you all.
Oh, we actually just had one come up.
Oh, Madeline.
Do you want to, are you okay reading that, or?
Sure, I see. So
Okay.
Madeline's asking, what are some, oops. Oh, it just went off. Let's see.
And I can pull it up here.
So what are some things you might address when reapplying? Would you increase your qualifications or enhance your communication skills? What would be different between a failed first application and a successful one? So would you increase your qualifications or enhance your communication? You know, Madeline, it really depends. You know, I wish I had a perfect answer for this question. You know, it really depends on, you know, what they were looking for. I guess what I might do if you didn't get the first time is, I guess, again, try to just improve in any ways you can. Skills, proficiencies that are most important in that role. And what would be the difference between a failed first application and a second? So you don't know who you're competing with. So if you don't get it, right, if you don't get that job, it's likely that another candidate had better qualifications, more qualifications, and would be a better fit at that time. So yeah. And that's what's so, you know, challenging and stressful. You know, it can be stressful when you're interviewing for a job. I'm actually just talked to a family member who just found out he didn't get a job, had 5 interviews. Oh my God. They would, you know, it was just really, I didn't get it. And, you know, he's dying to know who got it, you know, so because he's like, you know, you don't know who you're competing with. So that can be really hard, you know, and tricky, because sometimes the competition is going to be really high and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're going to stand out by a long shot. So it really depends on the position, the organization, and what they're looking for. I hope that helps.
Well, thank you for taking a crack at that. It's hard because, in my experience, at least, it's so situational.
It is.
Yeah, but that's what's great about people like you is there's resources out there.
Yeah. Right.
People you can talk to about that.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll give it.
You know, and again, getting, you know, knowing as much, again, when you do apply for jobs with organizations, talking to your family, friends, you know, your people about, you know, asking them, you know, do they know anybody in the company, in the organization, and reaching out to them too, because again, you want to have as much information as possible about the place, and people will share that. So, and it can really vary, cultures, place, you know, it can be, so you want to have a really good understanding.
Wonderful. Good. Well, no other questions have come through. So thank you so much again for all of your knowledge and wisdom and time. And we genuinely appreciate everything, you joining us today. So
yeah. Oh, I want to say one more thing, Chris. I didn't say. So after you apply for a job, and let's just say they say, okay, we're wrapping up the interviews, we're going to be done. You should expect to hear from us by December 20th. So let's just say that's the scenario. So December 20th and you've heard nothing, and then the 21st and you've heard nothing. So what do? That's when you're going to be proactive. You're going to reach out to them. You're going to send them a quick email and just ask them, just following up, I'm just reiterating, I'm still very interested in the position. When can I expect to hear? When do you, just following up to see when I can expect, when the decision will be made. So again, keeping your name with them and your interest. Again, you never know where these committees, these people, where they are in the process. And so again, if they gave you a date and you haven't heard, the following day, definitely follow up and ask, and just, ask them where they are, what the status of the position is, and that you can just reiterate that you're still very interested in being considered. Always be proactive and not reactive in this whole process too.
It's a great piece of advice. Absolutely.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, thank
Good.
you.
All right,
Thank
good.
you.
All right, well, thanks everybody. And best of luck, and keep practicing.